Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another Pick a Card reading. So today's a topic that I do every once in a while. I haven't done it for a while, but I do always enjoy doing it. So it's a topic around what spiritual gifts, what new spiritual gifts are arising in you, will you start to notice that you have abilities in, or potentially sort of ways to use those spiritual gifts too. And the inspiration was because I just got this lovely new deck. It's very small cards, but it's incredibly comprehensive, which it's effectively a spiritual gifts deck. You'll see the details for the deck in the description box below if you're interested in it yourself. But it has probably, from what I could see, one of the most comprehensive ranges of spiritual gifts. And I thought, what a fantastic deck to really start to look at a range of things that could be coming in for you and how they might manifest in your life. So that's basically what we're doing today. So what I did, as I usually do when I'm sort of showcasing a new deck and doing it this way, I shuffled and asked Spirit for one of the gifts that is part of your group. We're going to be looking at up to 5. Why I say up to 5 is that there's 4 other cards under each of these. I don't know what they are, but in this deck, there's sometimes it's a spiritual gift and sometimes it's the application of the spiritual gift. So it could be up to 5 spiritual gifts, or it could be a combination of that and how to apply it. And once we've kind of looked at that as a sort of sweep of kind of spiritual gifts and things that you might start noticing you have abilities in, or you might already know you have abilities in and you're going to kind of do more with. Once that's done, we're going to have a look at a little bit more detail about it, how they'll first manifest, how you're meant to use them, and use some oracle decks as well to look at that, as well as tarot. So of course, you can go to more than one. You might have a range across this. You might have 10 gifts coming in, who knows? This is a very interesting year. As you know, I'm doing the soul activation series. So I think that people's connection to their spiritual gifts, I think, is going to heighten this year. So another sort of reason to be really keen when I saw this deck to get it and also to do the reading. So to help with the choice possibly, but you do you, pile number 1 has dowsing, which is, of course, where you can use rods to try and find and locate things. Pile number 2 has telepathy, so being able to read minds or send information that way. And pile number 3 has psychic healing. So they may draw you, whatever, but do whatever works for you to find your reading or readings. Once you know what one or ones you want to go to, timestamps as always are in the description box below, and I'll see you there. Welcome, pile 1, to your reading. So you can do the reading with dowsing as a starting point. And as I say, to me, that suggests the sort of skills. It could be literally doing dowsing, using the rods and finding things. People, try to find water, gold, lost objects, that kind of thing with dowsing. So it's a form of searching ability, and to kind of connect in with the energy currents of the world. The actual card reads that you're being called to explore dowsing or divining rods to discover the answers or treasures that you seek. So I think dowsing can also be used a bit like the pendulum. So we've got a very similar thing here in asking questions as well. So it depends how you want to use it, but most classically, it's like this person is showing there. So this would suggest to me that you have an ability rising that is about connecting into energy centers and finding kind of the vibration of different forms of energy, different forms of object, that kind of thing. And it's interesting because we've got discernment and pendulum, and as I say, so I feel like they're a kind of almost a triptych that work together for you. So one is the sense of the energy coming through. One is being able to divine answers, yes, no answers, that kind of thing. And then the third with discernment is to be able to determine when the answer is right, when the energy is right, when you are picking up the right current. Because these two both require quite a lot of sensitivity and not kind of rushing, like to get the right answer. With pendulums, it's really easy without even being aware of it to do micro movements to get an answer. So you have to be very still, very discerning, very calm, patient, waiting for things to come. With dowsing, it's also the matter of like letting the energy come to you. So I feel like there's a part of your overall spiritual gifts that are building around discernment, are building around what is a spiritual message to you, what isn't. Now, it's interesting, the other two. Clairalliance is sort of picking up sense, it's sort of clear smelling. I often think that turns up around mediumship. The example I tend to use is, if your great aunt Rose used to use rose perfume, you might smell rose perfume and it could be an indication she's there and connecting with you. But things that don't smell quite right, something that smells fishy, some of those sort of terminologies we use, which might not be as direct as you actually smelling it, but you have that kind of terminology around it. It is also a kind of discernment, but I think it's also connected to messages. So I think one side of this is picking up the energies almost of non-corporeal energy, like water, gold, objects that you're trying to find. And actually, maybe that's more the dowsing. But with the pendulum and with the discernment and with this, there's something about being able to connect with the spirit world and know when it is the spirit world. So there's something in that. And then there's something about, I think, accuracy. We have acupuncturists here. Now, some of you may be interested in acupuncture. If you are, take this as a big tick. If you already use it, take it as a big tick that your skills of discernment and energy work and kind of being able to open up other clear senses is going to heighten your acupuncturist ability. But otherwise, it is possible that some of you might be drawn to pile 3 as well with the psychic healing, with acupuncturists coming up. Or it could just be that if you go to an acupuncturist, it might actually trigger some of this. So as I say, you need to be a little bit lateral in how we read this. But I feel like for you, part of it is connecting with the other side. And the other thing is connecting with the energies of the material world, being able to discern what is true as opposed to what you would hope to be true, or hope was the answer, think was the answer. And then a kind of accuracy, I feel. I feel like the acupuncturist thing, if it's not literally that you're doing that it's about accuracy. So I think there's a discernment, accuracy, energy reading kind of side of things. I think that you would be someone who could find things, get answers. That kind of energy is what's coming through for you. So let's use the tarot. Let's ask a little bit more about this combination of gifts. Then we're going to ask how you're first going to see them manifest. And there might be a number of things in that because they're not all necessarily the same kind of skill. But then we'll also ask, what are you meant to do with this? And I do think there's an accuracy, a discernment, an energy reading, and a connection to the other side. I think they're the kind of 4 key things that we're talking about here. So firstly, a little bit more about that for you. King of Wands, Ace of Swords, Queen of Swords, okay. Page of Coins reversed, the Lovers reversed. All right, okay, so it's 2 really clear things here to me. One is that there is a kind of a combination of the accuracy, the discernment, the premier energy of the mind, new ways of thinking, new ideas. A lot of this is about channeling, I would say, channeling the energy of objects and things that you're looking for in the material world, channeling from the other side, discerning that kind of thing. The mind, your mind is very important to this. So, and I often talk about this, that some people in spiritual groups say, shut out the mind gets in the way. But I honestly don't believe that's true. I think it's really important not to use the mind as a kind of barometer that does shut things out, but to actually be able to do the discernment. So I think the discernment's a really strong thing here. And it makes you be able to go from a first concept, a first piece of information, something that you smell, something that, a question you ask, something that you energetically feel, something that you find, because acupuncture is sort of finding the energy points as well. Going very rapidly from that to an understanding of it. And I think there's a creative aspect, interestingly. I think that there's sort of something about channeling on a creative level. In fact, it may well be that so far, a lot of your spiritual gifts have felt like they were channeled and have felt they were creative. This is now, it's like it's moving from that, which feels a bit channeling, prophetic, into more of a diagnostic almost, or a sense of finding, assuring, discerning, calibrating information to get to accuracy. And I think that there's sort of 2 aspects. One is to uncover material things that need to be uncovered. I think the other is a form of mediumship. So I do think there is a mediumship thing going on with you. So there's something about connections, different sorts of relationships, which I feel is a connection across the veil. And I feel Page of Coins reversed is to uncover the material options around things with a precision, a creative energy with a precision that brings things, the energy into the material. So I think that's why the dowsing was the first card that we saw. So how are they going to first manifest for you? What kind of energy, what sort of things could happen that would make you go, okay, now I can see those gifts are coming into being? 9 of Swords reversed, the Devil, 10 of Coins reversed, Strength reversed. Five of Cups. Interestingly, I think that this is arising out of a form of loss or problem. It's out of problem solving. I think that you're going to start to use your abilities to problem solve for others. It's like you or someone else has felt a bit stuck. You might have felt creatively stuck, or other people might have felt stuck, particularly materially. I think that there's a big thing here about manifestation and wanting to take away the worry and the sort of second guessing around manifestation. There might even be an idea or a thought that you've had or others around you have had that you've got stuck at the beginning and you haven't been able to progress it. But this, it's sort of like bringing it into, it's like realizing that almost the material aspects of this, the bodily aspects, how is this energy that's maybe coming from beyond the veil, coming from your psychic senses, how is that manifesting? Like, it's got to do with something. It could be in a career, it could be around family, it could be anything, but it's around something material. I think it's around manifestation, around a frustration or a blockage in that. Working out what that is, moving past disappointment. I feel like you start to realize you have this because you start to try and diagnose a block or an issue, either in your life or in other people's lives, that is literally standing in the way of manifestation, and which is holding people in a sense of emotional loss as well. So it's actually out of trying to work out why there isn't the strength to make something and why something is stuck, wanting to alleviate the worry about that this comes up. It's like your problem solving abilities. And you've probably always had really good problem solving abilities. You just haven't realized that some of it's psychic, and now it's really going to come to the fore. Okay, so how are you then meant to best use these? Once you realize you have that ability, because I think you're going to solve a problem, sort something out, help something come into being, get into balance, manifest itself, and you're going to realize, okay, yeah, I do have these abilities. So then what are you meant to do with them once you realize it? Eight of Cups, Six of Wands, the Emperor reversed, the Three of Coins reversed. Okay, there's two areas where this is going to work. There definitely is a mediumship thing here. You're definitely on some level, with the Devil energy, the Ten of Coins here, the Nine of Swords, the Five of Cups, you may help them move on. Like, I think there could be an issue around that. Like, I think there's both the manifestation, I think that's the main one, but I think there's some sort of energy about detaching and releasing people from if they're feeling stuck to the earthly level. So I think that's part of it. So part of it is releasing emotional issues, helping people do that. And you'll be very recognised for that, actually. It's probably the main way you're going to be recognised. But there's also something about breaking through problems that have to do with illegitimate power, where people aren't working well together, where things aren't able to materialise, where things are not fair. So it's almost as though you're able to define and discern how to get around blocks that are based on, I don't know, politics or social injustice or something like that, and create and find the connections between people, energies, their own energies, the world, all that kind of thing, so that blocks to collaboration are stopped. So there is definitely, on one side, you're a diagnostician that's helping other people around very material things, but I also think that this has got something to do with mediumship as well. But it's kind of like it becomes a bit tangentially. I think the mediumship probably comes from things like the clairalience becoming clear to you, and then you start to realize when you're using a pendulum, when you're doing any kind of energy work, that you're connecting with that, and you'll start to understand that's part of what you're meant to do. But I think beyond that, it's like you're using this as a way of working out energy and getting past blockages to let energy flow more freely into manifestation to occur. Okay, so I thought we'd also have a look at kind of some witchy energy around this. So get a couple of cards from the Revisa Oracle for either something else around this that you either have or is coming through, or sort of a little bit more information on what we're already seeing as the suite of new spiritual gifts that are arising in you. Exorcism. Okay, that's interesting with the Devil card. Now, I'm not saying that all of you have to get into being an exorcist, but I think there might be something in the less full-on version of that, which is more the kind of helping spirits who are feeling blocked or stuck move on, rather than, though of course, you know, if you're interested in exorcism, you would have abilities, so go for it, but I think most people would probably prefer not to do that. And astral realm, yeah, your connection with the astral realm. So I think you're able to sort of like move in between the realms really well. That's where the sort of mediumship comes from. And you can look at how the energy comes in there and work out how that could manifest. How do you bring things from the liminal into the manifest world? And where is the connection between them? It's almost like I think you'd be really good at finding kind of portals and energy centers and that kind of thing. But there is something where you're clearing the devil. You're clearing the things that bind us. There's something here about discerning and clearing blockages, I think, that your power is particularly aimed at doing. Okay, so what I also wanted to have a look at was how this operates kind of very materially in two different ways. How these gifts work with your heart energy and how these gifts work with your kind of interaction with other people energy. So we're just using a couple of different decks for that, just to get a little bit of information around that, because when we are using our spiritual gifts, how we connect by the heart and what the humanity is of it all is very important. So how are these, in the way that these arise and you build these abilities, what heart energy are you working with primarily, at least at first? Divinely connected heart, meet your karma. This is something you're really meant to do. You are meant to help others. This is a very strong light worker energy for you, actually. This is why I guess the exorcism came up. It's not that you have to go out and be an exorcist per se, but you are able to deal with that. So this is coming from that level, and it would fit with the medium energy. What about the human situation energy that you might be sort of helping with your new gifts? Support system. Yeah, I think you're supporting others. This is you probably have gifts that can do all sorts of other things, but I think a really big part of what you're doing is creating a support system for others, a diagnostic about how energy can flow. You're connected through the astral realms to very pure information and to those that have passed on. But you are here to help. You are here to support others. You are here to as I say, I think some of you may get drawn to pile 3 too, given that pile 3 had the spiritual healing, but you don't have to. It's just if you feel drawn to it. That's part of it. Okay, so we also, this whole reading just was really about kind of your spiritual and magical power. So I thought, why not also get a couple of the spiritual archetypes that incorporating these spiritual gifts with your other spiritual gifts, what do you start to embody? So let's see a couple of those as well. The seafarer, adventure, exploration, resilience. I think, actually, I'm going to put this over here. I think this is you with the emotional energy and helping and healing those with the emotional energy, being in the astral realm. I think that you are an explorer in the astral realm. You have a lot of courage. So there's an exploratory thing. That also fits with dowsing in a way, the sort of feeling of like, looking for bodies of water, looking for gold and precious minerals. It's sort of like the energies of the world, exploring the world. And the alchemist. Yeah, the different sort of ingredients, the healing energy here. Plus the divinely connected heart, because ultimately that's one of the sort of outcomes of the alchemical process. The heart, the soul gets divinely connected, it turns into the white and gold rose, that kind of energy. So there is definitely something a bit healing about this. You have a healing ability, so it's medium healing and kind of clearing blockages. That's kind of the key energy around this for you. So let's also see just some stars, just a couple of planetary pairings that also bring in some of this energy for you. Mars and Uranus, okay. Comes in fast. It's a big change. I do think it's like, I feel like you're dealing with something very blocked, very stuck, potentially, kind of in a workplace or around with some of the other cards we saw around sort of illegitimate use of power potentially or something like that. You are kind of a iconoclast and you kind of break through something to clear the energy, to clear the blockages. But I think it comes through quite quickly. I think there's a sudden sort of issue. It's a sudden awareness of mediumship ability or a sudden awareness of something that you can see, you can discern the energy and how it's operating and how to break through a block. So that's a big part of it for you. And acting, being able to act, helping people to act if they feel stuck. And, wow, yeah, Venus and Uranus, okay. So, and this comes from the heart. The heart wants to change. It's big change energy. It makes sense. Uranus really would be the unblocking energy of the unblocking planet. So this is both in action and in the heart. It's what needs to be done, the powers of the world, all that kind of thing, and also the heart. It also suggests to me, interestingly, that you could also be very good at helping people find the balance and the right connection in love, the breakthroughs that they need with that. It could be a subset, because I feel like with Venus and Mars, and then we've got Uranus here, you may be very, very good at diagnosing blocks that people have around their heart center and around how they can find the right person for themselves, that sort of thing. Or you may work with sort of twin flame energies or soul twin energies or things like that as well. Okay, so just to finish off, I want to get the concept from your higher self, your 5D self, how these new gifts are ultimately going to manifest for you. Wow, digital warrior. The voice of freedom comes in many forms. Your connection to the divine is a power cord of light. Now remember, it's a connection through the heart. Many of you may bring some of these ideas, give these sort of messages, deal with people online. You might do work like what I'm doing here, but like doing it more sort of in energy clearance and, relationships sort of support and mediumship and that kind of thing. But there's definitely a potential online thing. I also feel like with Digital Warrior, because it's online, I feel like it's electric. I feel like it's interesting. Like it's almost as though yours dips into both of the other two, because I felt like with the acupuncturist, there was the healing energy. And then I feel very strongly that telepathy is heightened over electronic media. So the fact that we've got that, the telepathy is there too. So you may want to watch all of them actually to see what amalgam fits for you, but only do that if that feels right to you. But I do think there's something here about communicating what you do and getting that sort of energy and that sort of understanding and wisdom out into the world, because it's really important for discernment, like particularly around spiritual things. It's very, very easy to get carried away and think, like one minute think, oh, I'm psychic, and the next minute think you're God or something. There's a lot of pitfalls, particularly when people are first dealing with spiritual stuff, sort of like in terms of ego and so forth, that can come in. So having that discernment, that clarity, being able to know what is real, that's really, really powerful and really, really important. So I hope you enjoyed the reading. I hope it resonates for you. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So you came to the reading with telepathy. And so this card is saying you're being called to explore sending and receiving non-verbal thoughts, idea and energy that does not involve the live senses. So telepathy in its most pure form. So I think that's a very strong energy that's coming in. I think it's very much connected to precognition as one of the other ones coming in, because I think that the two things are quite strongly linked in any case. Telepathy is the sort of sense of being either a receiver or a sender of information non-verbally and beyond, just reading body language or anything like that, and often, on the other side of the world, so you don't have to be sort of seeing the person or whatever. And you can often telepathically pick up energy from people when they're worried or whatever, if you're psychically connected to them. So there's definitely that sort of energy building for you. But I think precognition is often connected to telepathy. This is just my own personal theory. And we'll talk about both, because we can see it as a separate skill in and of itself. But I think a lot of what we think of as precognition is a kind of extended telepathy. It's sort of like I visually sort of see it as all having kind of almost concentric circles of energy reaching out from each of us that we can sort of access telepathically with each other. And what we see when we see the future often is the energies that's moving closer and closer to the person. And of course that can shift. I think this is how tarot works actually, in terms of precognition or prediction as well. That can shift with choices and changes, but you're sort of telepathing into the person and then beyond that into the energy that's coming to them. So I think there is a definitely a very strong telepathic part of precognition, where it's not really that you're seeing something in the future. You're seeing something, I always say, the present at long distance. So that, I think, is connected. So I think you definitely have those abilities. So prophecy, prediction, precognition. But even if you don't agree with that, and you don't have to agree with that as the way that one does precognition, you are, on top of being able to potentially read minds, you are going to start to dream predictively, write predictively, just know when somebody's going to call you on the phone, just know when things are going to happen, have a sense of what could happen with the stock market or any of those sort of things. You're going to, what's going to happen politically, that kind of thing. Prophecy, from precognition on sort of more mundane things like, who's going to call you up next or whatever, through to the very profound, like, what's happening on the world political stage. So you've got those sort of very mental, cognitive types of spiritual gifts really growing. We also have graphology, so it's suggesting if you are interested in it, you could be very good at reading and learning how to decipher handwriting and understanding the energy that's within that. So these sort of things, these three to me are very, very psychological in a way. I think there's a psychological aspect to what you're doing here, understanding the psychology of people that creates events that are coming, the psychology of telepathy to be able to decipher messages, the psychology that we give away when we do handwriting. So there's those three things. And then there's a couple that are around healing. And it's interesting, I was sort of saying in another poll that I thought it connected to another file as well. And this is kind of the same here. I think some of you will go to more than one, and there is some cross-fertilization because I feel like these are gifts around healing. So holistic skincare specialist, what it says is you're being called to explore healing of the mind, body and soul through care and treatment of skin. And then we have sound and song healing, and it's saying you're being called to explore sound and musical healing to move energy from a state of imbalance to balance. So I feel like the skin is like, it's interesting actually, because telepathy is almost getting under the skin, it's getting into the mind. And so it's sort of like with skin as a skincare specialist, a holistic skincare specialist, to be looking at the balance of the body and the mind, I think may have something to do with this for you. So that I think is part of the connection. It's like you can certainly go and become a skincare specialist if you want, but this may not be literal. It may be a little bit more lateral to think about it. It's more the understanding of you can get under the skin of things. Plus you can also see the surface. Actually, I think it's a bit of both. Then sound and song healing, I think, is another way that we communicate, this time orally. So there's sort of like cognitively and orally and visually. So I think, and precognition is often visual. So I think there's something about that. So there definitely is something to do with healing, but I feel like it's more... that's describing your telepathy, your precognition, your psychological understanding of others and how you can use that for the greater good. I think that's what we're seeing here. So let's see if tarot can tell us a little bit more. Let's ask a bit more just about these gifts coming through. Then let's ask how you'll first see them, how they'll first manifest, what will trigger you knowing you have these gifts, and then how you're meant to use them. So firstly, just a little bit more about it to get a bit of a clearer idea what we're looking at here. The Ace of Wands. Oh no, hang on, that's the Seven of Wands. Sometimes a little bit hard to tell. Seven of Wands reversed. The Wheel of Fate. And this is the precognition. Nine of Wands reversed. King of Cups reversed. Deja Vu. Okay. These two are connecting to that. So Deja Vu is an additional major arcana card in this deck. So there is a healing thing around this with the King of Cups reverse. I often see that as Chiron, the wounded healer. So there's definitely emotional healing in particular. But a large chunk of this is like deja vu, precognition, prophecy. What magicians will tell you about prophets is that they understand the past just as much as they see the future. So it's, as I say, once they kind of, particularly with telepathy, they can connect in energetically, they can get under the skin, they can see what energies are coming, and they understand the patterns because they've seen them before. So I think that there's a sense of you may in fact find the first way that this starts to come through might feel a bit like deja vu or a bit like the Mandela effect or something like that. But this is you kind of connecting into that ability. And I think it'll feel quite familiar, but I also feel that you will see patterns. There's patterns you're seeing. Much as with graphology, that's what sort of happens. You're seeing patterns in writing, the way that certain letters are formed, that kind of thing, that will tell you a lot. So I think there's something about the patterns of things and where people are not feeling ready to move forward and do something, where people need to be healed. and where there's maybe a lot of contention with the Nine of Wands and the Seven of Wands reversed. It feels to me like it's in some sort of a little bit of a conflict situation that you start to see this, and you can start to see the weave of the world. You can start to see what's happening. You can see what's under the surface of what's going on here. Therefore, you can heal by being able to predict and connect and know what's coming, so that you can kind of, a bit like the fates here, take the wheel in your hands and actually take it where it needs to go. So I feel like you're first going to start to see these things coming up in an environment where there's some conflict. So let's look at that a little bit more. Like, how are they first manifesting? How are these skills first manifesting? Five of Coins reversed. Ten of Wands. Gee, there's Wands energy around this. Judgment reversed. Three of Cups reversed. Four of Cups reversed. The interesting thing about this, as this first manifests, you may not want to be in it at all, to be honest. With the Judgment reverse, you might go, this is not something I want to be involved in. I don't think you're going to have a lot of choice, though. I think there's conflict. I think there's a lot of energy that's being dissipated and not used in a good way. It's kind of out of balance. And you need to connect, or you will naturally connect to others. It's because you're telepathic. So you're going to do that whether you want to. You're drawn into this whether you want to. But I think that at first when it manifests, you're going to go like, I don't want to be involved in this, because it feels messy. It feels like suddenly I'm kind of in everybody's energy, and it's like, how do I get out? I feel blocked myself. How do I get blocked out of it? That kind of thing. But I think that's almost a rite of passage. I think there's a high degree of empathy here, but it's empathy on an intellectual level, and in some ways that's better, Potter. In some ways you'll find, once you've kind of recognized it and accepted it and started to work with the energy rather than fighting against it, that you can clear some of these blocks out and not take on the emotional stuff of other people, because there's nothing here to suggest you're absorbing it. It feels like you might be receiving the information and being able to see what's coming, but it's kind of like you're getting under it and understanding it and bringing it into balance. And it feels kind of a combination of intellectual and almost musical, so that it's not sort of, you're not too much tied up in it emotionally. And I think this is what Spirit wants you to see, that this is primarily a thing of cognition and understanding and healing that can be, while the cognition with the telepathy and the precognition is very connected, because you have to be connected, you don't have to be drawn into the well of the emotional energy. You can stand a bit separate to it. So let's see how you best meant to use these skills then. King of Coins. Death reversed. Oh, this is interesting. You don't want to. Two of Cups. Hierophant reversed. Okay, you don't want to do it. I've got to tell you that, like, there's something about this, that you're the reluctant psychic, you're the reluctant telepath. It's really. But it is meant to be used materially for you. You're meant to do something material, have a good material outcome. You're also meant to use it to find the right connections, love and other connections, and eventually to be a very unconventional teacher. A very unconventional, sort of like putting a system in place or something like that, and showing people something that's very unconventional, ahead of its time. But boy, it's very interesting, because I would have thought most of the time when people come to this reading, it's like, oh, this is fun, one of my spiritual gifts. And these are significant spiritual gifts, but it's like, whoa. And I think you may have experienced these before in your life, and you maybe suppress them, that deja vu. So I think that is connecting to the precognition, but I think you also have dealt with this before. So, or it might have been in a past life. But nevertheless, you are meant to you do get to make the choice at your timing, but it's like the pressure's going to build up, I think, because people, you're getting this information more and more and more. So it's like you kind of need to come to terms with it and come into balance with it. But I think you may well be able to teach others and so forth, and do something in a business with it, so you're kind of sublimating into something that is material, and it's that, I feel like, intellectual and material, so it doesn't get too close to your heart, because it would be a bit overwhelming. Very interesting. So let's see some witchy energy around this for you with the Revisa Oracle. Dark feminine. Oh, interesting. Okay. And forest. Okay. I think this is showing why you're a little bit reluctant. I think that you are in a very contentious environment, or where this comes up is very contentious. There is probably a lot of kind of dark feminine sort of energy around it. There could be a lot of kind of anger, emotional anger, that kind of thing around it. So I think you'll kind of know, or you've had lives where you've dealt with this, you know this energy, you know kind of where the power comes from, but it's very emotionally, it kind of draws you into the forest of the emotions. So I think this is why there's a reluctance, and Spirit is saying if you make it more intellectual and more material, it's a better way of dealing with it, because it's pretty big. Your ability here is pretty big, and it could be overwhelming. And I think, it could take you into dark places or make you feel a bit lost. So I feel like the witchy energy there is to learn how to control that and tame that, by making it very material, making it very intellectual, getting a kind of a sense of detachment while you still connect in, because you're going to connect in naturally and you're going to see things naturally. I feel like, like in a past life, you might have been some sort of witch that people went to, or oracle that people went to, who really did see and really did tell the truth. And it might have been a bit scary to go and see you because it really was the truth. And it was kind of like not the most happy thing to be. But on the other hand, I think this time around you're meant to kind of make a material thing with it and bring things into balance and not feel as drawn into the forest with it. So interesting. It's a bit challenging, this one for you. It's strong, but it's a bit challenging. So let's see how your heart energy and how the human energy of it operates. So if we're dealing with something you're a little bit ambivalent about, but you're very powerful with, how is your heart interacting with this? Because I think Spirit's sort of trying to protect your heart a bit so it doesn't get too much drawn into other people's stuff. While you can still have the sight, you can still see, you can still understand, you can still get under the skin, but you don't get too drawn into other people's stuff. So the heart energy, rebellious heart, think for yourself, yeah. Make sure that your heart is kept a little bit sacrosanct. It isn't drawn into other people's drama, because you could be. And I think you have been in the past. Okay, let's see the human energy around this, the human interaction or ways that this could be manifesting for you. No strings attached. Okay, this is definitely, this is a very interesting message, Potter. It's very clearly saying that you have exceptionally strong telepathy and precognition ability. You really do. But boy, it's a double-edged sword. So it's definitely saying don't get drawn into other people's stuff. You can give the answer and it is what it is. Don't sort of like get drawn into arguments of it or whatever. People can take what you say or not. You're going to be right far more often than you're wrong, but like don't get caught in anything and keep rebellious, like keep your heart separate to this. This is really like being an oracle, actually. This is not to just tell warm, fuzzy things to people that they feel happy about. This is like going to the Oracle of Delphi or something. You're going to hear the truth. So if people come to you, they're going to hear the truth. You're also going to see the truth, and it's going to be pretty much unprettified. And that's not always an easy thing to look at. But if you keep your heart a bit separate from all of this and you don't get drawn into it, then you can manage this ability really well. Okay, let's have a look, given this really powerful thing, what kind of spiritual archetypes you might start to embody as a result of these gifts rising up in you. The Shadow Weaver, truths that lie hidden in the shadows. Yeah, in the shadows, in the forest, under the skin, in the handwriting. You would probably do very, very good shadow work. Sorry, just move that a bit. You would do very, very good shadow work. But people need to be able to hear what you have to say, because some people aren't going to be able to. And the Crystal Guardian, working with crystals and their energy. So this may be how you can actually support and protect yourself, using them to clear energy, put boundaries around, that kind of thing. It might be something really worth exploring so that you use these skills without them overwhelming you. Okay, let's have a look also at a couple of pairs of planets to see how these new gifts are operating for you. Venus and Neptune. See, this is the thing. You really, and like at its best, when the dark feminine becomes the light feminine, or they kind of like come into balance, that's great. There's a great deal of heart. Your heart is, you have a very open heart to people, and a lot of your psychic ability has been very open-hearted, but this is like a whole other level. So I think you need to be aware. This is a place where you need some boundaries. This is where I think the crystals might help you, because you have a natural thing to connect at a heart level as well, but this is not how these skills are best used. And Saturn and Uranus, this is much more deep-seated things, big karma stuff, big change, the structures of the world. It's more relentless. This is a relentless energy. So protect your heart and protect with your other spiritual gifts and the other knowledge that you have, because this is groundbreaking. This is groundbreaking for you and for anybody else that's connected to you. Okay, so it's pretty full on. So we're just going to finish with a card from the Rainbow Oracle to see how your 5D self views these skills coming in and how you can best use them. Way changer, way changer. You're a liberating force here to inspire change and challenge the system. So you are meant to do that, but you've really got to protect yourself, because your ability to see the future, see the consequences of things, understand what's going on under the skin, understand human nature, really off the charts. But boy, you've got to have some boundaries, because it's drawing you into big ticket change issues, and you're going to see it coming. You're going to feel you have to. It's like you couldn't really close your eyes to it. So some people in this complex, troubled world that we're in are able to kind of go, I'm just going to be high vibrational, and close their eyes and just concentrate on their day-to-day life. And in many ways, I can understand why they do it, because sometimes you can feel helpless, but you're not helpless and you're not going to be able to do it. So protect your heart, protect yourself. This is a very precious set of gifts and very necessary, but make sure that while you'll be reluctant to take it up, that it's something that empowers you rather than weighs you down. So I wish you the very best with it, pile 2. I hope you enjoyed the reading. And if so, please like the video and subscribe if you care to share in the comments. I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your readings. So you've probably got the most diverse set of skills, or ones that to me don't kind of come together in necessarily a coherent whole. So it'll be interesting. It could just be a range of things that are going to all arise in you at the same time. You came to the one with psychic healing. So that says that you are being called to explore psychic and spiritual healing to help improve one's condition, no matter if you're focusing on the mind, body or soul. And there's certainly in other readings have been some elements of spiritual healing and so forth. So some of you may have gone to more than one reading, but there's a strong thing here about healing, because we also have psychic surgery. Now, that's not necessarily some of the kind of more strange things we see in cults and so forth, with people supposedly reaching into bodies and so forth. This is much more around just the kind of using energy and understanding energy blockages and clearing those and so forth. So there's definitely something about psychic healing. So you if you wanted to do that, or if you want to explore that, you'll find you have a natural talent in it. There's also divination of 2 different types. So one thing is runes. So runes is very much divination, a bit like tarot or a bit like oracle cards, where you cast things and you see what the patterns are and what the symbols are, and you work with that kind of symbolic language. So you definitely would have an ability to do divination in that way. It doesn't even necessarily have to be runes. It could be tarot cards, it could be oracle cards, it could be any number of different sort of devices like that. But there's that kind of thing, which is the reaching in or shuffling or whatever it is, the random, and seeing what the patterns are that comes out to do divination. And you may even use that partly around the healing. But you've also got astrology. Now, astrology is of a different order. It's definitely a form of divination and prediction, but it's also, a psychological study, all sorts of things. But it's scientific and it's maths. It's not, some people will say pseudoscience. I don't agree with that. I think it is actually scientific, but it is of that kind of order. It's sort of like it's not random. You will look up an ephemeris and you will see what's in somebody's chart on the day they were born and the time they were born. You will look at what transits are going on at the moment. It's not like it's kind of let's toss all the planets out and see what ones come out. I mean, I use oracle decks around astrology, and when I'm doing that, I'm not necessarily saying that these particular planets are doing anything specific in your chart. It's more that I'm looking at the energies, reading them like a divination tool. But astrology itself is a scientific art. So it's sort of, and it is spiritual and it is an art, but it is also scientific. So I think it is suggesting if you wanted to look into astrology, you would have a natural ability there. Plus animal communication. So this is a particular branch of spiritual ability. I have a friend who's studied that. So this is being able to communicate with and understand animals that obviously don't use our language or so forth, but telepathically, psychically, energetically to help with that sort of thing. So that's quite a disparate range of things. You certainly could bring healing to that. A lot of people who do the animal communications are healers, but when you that famous person, the horse whisperer, all that kind of thing, there's a certain sort of set of skills associated with that. So I feel like you're the spiritual polymath, really, and you may well have a number of other skills as well too. It's sort of here's a grab bag of things. What ones will you use for what situation? So. And so it's sort of, I don't feel, in the other readings, I felt like there's a kind of a holistic thing that brings this together. Whereas for this, I think, as I say, you're kind of a spiritual polymath. So given that, let's see what we get. Let's get a little bit more from tarot about these skills coming in, a little bit about how they manifest, in what sort of circumstances, and a little bit about how you should use them. So firstly, just a bit more about all of this, just to see if maybe something does come together and I go, oh, okay, this is how it all works together. Page of Cups, Nine of Swords reversed, Five of Wands, Three of Wands, Four of Wands. Okay. So there's something to do with community, connection, maybe creative energy, making people get sort of like more connected and more harmony and all of that kind of thing associated with this. Maybe where there's sort of some minor conflict and some worries that need to be removed. It's very heart-centered. All of it's heart-centered. So I almost feel like if you're in a situation where people, a workplace were trying to get a better teams, people were trying to find their partner, their love partner, a great friend, they were trying to resolve minor conflicts, they were trying to get out of anxiety about something, they were trying to connect with their heart. You could do it partly through energy, psychic healing. You could read runes for them. You could look at their astrology charts. Or you might sort of look at what their pets are doing. Like, I feel like this is, you apply your spiritual gifts towards bringing people to their heart and to harmony and to getting back on their path and to sort of like diagnose and separate people from anxiety and conflict that isn't working for them. But you use different things. You've got all these different things in your kit bag. So given that, how will you see this particular suite manifest? Because this is like maybe a group of new things or things that you've got but you haven't worked with a lot and Spirit is suggesting you work a bit more with. Chariot reversed. Queen of Swords reversed. Eight of Coins. Eight of Wands reversed. Nine of Cups. Okay. What Spirit's saying about this is you are a natural learner. This is the thing. You are the polymath. You pick up lots of things and you often pick them up quite quickly. What Spirit is saying about these is that probably look at all of them and take your time as to which you want to do. But you're kind of being nudged to learn all these things if you haven't already. Or if you pick them up a bit, you're meant to really focus on them and develop your skills there. There's no rush. It's not like there's some sort of thing that's going to happen in the next 2 weeks that you have to do. There's no rush. And Spirit wants you to just learn and not critique yourself, like allow yourself to learn. Ultimately, these are just meant to be things that you enjoy and make your life better and potentially make the life of other people better. But it's sort of like a lifelong learner. It's like you've got other spiritual gifts and now you kind of are exploring these. And Spirit just wants you to not be a perfectionist about it and not have to be the best at everything instantly or any of those things. It's no hurry. But these are all areas that you could explore and they would make your life happier. That's what Spirit's saying. So what about how you're meant to use them as you do develop them? Seven of Cups reversed, Six of Cups reversed, Three of Coins, King of Wands. Okay, so partly this is all meant to give you information that makes you very almost non-sentimental and very realistic about things. So if you say we're looking at the psychic and spiritual healing and you're trying to clear blockages, then learning these things well allows you not to sort of either project stuff on other people or to get into emotional tropes that are hard to get out of. This is like being very realistic emotionally and clearing old past energies and not being nostalgic. This is meant to be moved to move forward. If you did astrology, it wouldn't be to endlessly look at everything that happened in your childhood. It would be to say, okay, this is the relationships you have with your parents, siblings, this is how it looks in your chart. Understand that, understand the triggers so you can move beyond them. So the healing, I think, is about moving beyond blocks. So that's part of it. I think the other side of it, the divination sort of side with the runes, astrology and so forth, is also about working out what are the material things to work out and what are the creative things to pursue to have enjoyment in life. I'm also feeling that maybe the animal communication, because we've got the sort of phoenix rising here, we've got the bluebird there. I feel like there's a sense also around animal communication that if you are a creative, there's something about connecting in with animals that may inspire you. So it's sort of that's there almost as an enjoyable thing to bring through creative sparks. But I think for most of it, it's about using all of them to be pragmatic about things. Like just kind of go, here's what the astrology says, here's what the runes say, here's the energy that I see. It's to do it in a non-judgmental way, not of yourself or of anybody else. Just as Spirit doesn't want you to judge yourself as you learn, because it's a process of learning these things. You aren't meant to take judgmental energy into this either. It's a little bit more detached. So it's like literally you're carrying a kit bag and you're just meant to be able to open the kit bag and quite pragmatically draw out the skills that you need to use for whatever the circumstance is. So let's see whether we get anything a little bit more specific looking at witchy ability that you have around all of this using the Revisa Oracle. Firstly, fog. Okay, yeah, I think it's finding the way through the fog. This is the thing, and allowing yourself to take time to do it. If the fog will clear, if how all this is going to work together, how you're going to use it is not clear yet, it will clear. But I think you also help other people clear the fog away and understand things astrologically, divination, energy healing, communication, where there aren't the words maybe beyond just doing animal communication. It might also be where there really aren't the words for this. It's sort of a different energy that you have to bring in. And invoke. Wow. I think that's the creative energy. I think there's something creative in all this. I feel like that bird's being invoked. I think there's sort of something in understanding all of these things. If you were trying to sort of invoke, an angel or something like that, understanding the astrology is really good. Divination may tell you some information about the propitious times to do it. But I also feel like there's something about invoking your own creativity. Beyond words, beyond anything, like that is very much part of your true nature. So this will do this. I think it's also saying it's your true nature to draw out the truth out of the fog as well. So using all these different modalities as a way to do it. Okay, let's see how it affects your heart and how the human side of this works for you. Pile 3. So your heart in all of this, while you're sort of learning all these things and developing all your skills. Recovering heart, step onto the road for deeper healing. So there might be some healing of yourself that does this. It may be that the way that you learn all this stuff is to apply it to yourself to start with. That maybe you may be your own best test subject to start with. And in human sort of terms around this, human dynamics, siren song. Okay, all right. I think this is why it's a multitude of things. I think what Spirit is trying to say here is that you have a lot of spiritual ability. There are lots of different ways you can do it. The one way to make sure you don't get drawn into the fog is to have a breadth of abilities and approaches. Because if you just did the divination, or you just did the astrology, or you just did the healing, or you just did the animal communication, it's like you could almost be drawn into that one thing and lose your way in the fog. You're meant to have a variety of things. It's how you don't get too too obsessed, because there is something in you, we're showing before, where you're such a perfectionist that you can give yourself a really hard time. If you're looking at a number of things and learning them all at the same time, you won't get drawn into this siren song of I must be the best, because that's on that there is danger spiritually. It's more, I just need to be good at this. I just need to understand it. I need to have a variety of skills. I need to know how to use a variety of skills. So, and also when we're talking about doing self-healing, it's really important to have a variety of ways of looking at things to give you ways to heal and move out of something. Because in the spiritual community, there's often a thing, I've come across it quite a bit, where people, it's almost like they fall in love with the problem, they fall in love with the pain, they fall in love with the wounding. And they think the only shadow work and the only thing is to just constantly look at that and constantly pull the scab off and look at it again. Whereas, with real healing, we're meant to understand something, move past the sort of triggers that it creates in us and try and get more functional and more healthy ways of dealing with things. So I think there's also something there too. The more modalities you have, the more perspectives you have, the less likely you could be drawn into the siren song of getting stuck in one of them and a healing fog. Okay, so let's have a look at what spiritual archetypes you might be starting to manifest as a result of this polymath spiritual smorgasbord, so to speak, pile 3. The protector. Okay, so I think you are meant to protect and help other people. This is ultimately to help other people. But as I say, and again, the siren song there too, it's like being the healer in a way that is appropriate but doesn't become too much. A protector always has to make sure they don't sort of wrap everybody up in cotton wool. So there's a real thing about having a number of ways of looking at this so that you don't overdo any of them. And the scribe, reading, writing, gaining knowledge. Yeah, that some of this is you are a born person, a learning person, a sort of lifelong learner. And it's also, there was something creative around this. You are probably meant to write about this in some way. And so it may be that you kind of write a very broad piece of work that talks about a lot of things, a lot of different sort of spiritual abilities, understandings, ways of doing things. So that's definitely there as well too, like how you record what you say, how you can communicate what you say, and to different audiences again with the sort of animal communication. How do you do that? And how do you bring that and invoke up that kind of creative energy to do it in the first place? So let's see what planetary pairings will help you. And as I said, when I do this, when I use astrology, sometimes it will be a confirmation for you if you go, those 2 planets, are strongly aspected in my chart or something, and that's fine. But I'm more looking at what the planet energies are when I use it for divination. So let's get a couple. So firstly, we have Moon and Chiron. Yeah, there's definitely emotional healing. There's a lot about emotional healing here for yourself and then for others. But as I say, it's like don't fall in love with the problem and don't overprotect. That's kind of that's why having the variety of knowledge, abilities, perspectives is going to be so important. And Sun and Chiron, yeah, you are a healer. You are a healer. That's who you are at the core. And the Sun and the Moon, if you have had anything around difficult relationships or whatever, and you have to heal from that, once you've healed from that, understanding all of this, you may well bring in like the alchemical marriage, the absolutely, perfect relationship as well, once you've done that healing. But again, it's like, make sure that if you fall too much in love with the problem, you'll never get to the healing, which means you never get to that. So I think there's a purpose beyond this to bring you happiness. That's what Spirit wants, is to bring you happiness, joy, relationships, creativity, whatever it is. But the way you need to do it, because of the nature of you, we're a lifelong learner and you kind of want to be best at everything, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's good to be ambitious, but like it kind of can draw you down rabbit holes. So like by having lots of interests and lots of curiosities and lots of skills, it's the best way to make sure they all work together in the most functional way and the way that brings you the most joy. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like... Oh, actually, sorry, I've got one more card before I finish up. Funny, actually, because it's a card that is about bringing all this together from your 5D self. And your 5D self might be thinking, well, why would we bring it all together? Because you've just been spending the last 20 minutes telling me that they're all separate. But let's just sort of see if we can get a closing sort of message for you. Pile 3. Empath. You are the harp of God's heavenly choir, a multi-sensory, highly tuned being. You are a healer, you are an empath, but this is also why all of these things all of these different things in your kit bag give you the kind of breadth and diversity that you don't get drawn into the siren song of just the empathic side of it. You are a natural healer. That's how you start. They almost have very similar faces. Look at that. Like they're almost, you'd almost think that was the same person, wouldn't you? Isn't that interesting? Wow. Because they're completely different decks. So this is really saying the psychic healing, that's why it was the one that drew you in. You are a healer, you are an empath, but this is all about giving you the repertoire to make sure that it works for you and brings you joy and joy to others, rather than dragging you down into the fog that can come with sort of like just psychic ability, empathing in with others. So I hope that resonates for you. I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. If you care to share in the comments, I'd love to hear. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.